A very good evening, aspirants. Let us begin today with a happy note regarding UPSC Prelims 2022. See, results have been announced for Prelims 2022, and I'm happy to share that more than 900 candidates from Shankar Academy has cleared the examination, and more than 70 candidates cleared the examination in their first attempt. So I congratulate each and every one of them, and all the very best for the mains examination. And with this happy note, let us get into the Hindu Daily News analysis for the date 3rd of July 2022, brought to you by Shankar Academy. Displayed here are the list of articles that we are going to discuss today. Without any delay, let's get into the article discussion. See, we are going to start our discussion with this FAQ article. See, this news article talks about the recently concluded G7 summit, which was held on June 26th at Germany. And if you remember correctly, India was one among 5 special invitees to the summit. But this news article is not about that. Instead, this news article mentions about a values-driven, high-impact and transparent infrastructure partnership which was launched at the summit by the G7 grouping. See, it is a US-led $600 billion partnership, and it is named as Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, that is PGII. If you want to know more about PGII, then watch June 29 Daily News analysis. We have covered comprehensively about PGII in that analysis. So this is the crux of the news article given here. In this context, let us quickly go through some of the important points mentioned in this article. But before that, the syllabus relevant to the article is highlighted here for your reference. Please go through it. First of all, let us quickly revise about the G7 grouping. See, G7, that is a group of 7, is an informal grouping of world's 7 largest advanced economies. They are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom and United States. See, you have to remember that China has never been a member despite its large economy and having the world's biggest population. And remember, the EU, that is the European Union, is not a member of G7, but still it attends the annual summit of G7. Now apart from this, know that Germany took over the presidency of G7 in January 2022, and that is why the summit was held at Germany this year. And in that summit only, this Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment was launched by US. So what was India's response to this partnership? See, a day after US President made this PGII announcement, Foreign Secretary of India said that PGII is just another separate G7 initiative. And according to him, it is not a G7 outreach initiative unless there is some input to the initiative. Here, outreach means an effort by individuals in an organization to connect its ideas or practices to the other organizations, groups, specific audiences or the general public. So, outreach is nothing but taking it to other organizations. And why this response of India is significant? See, according to the author of the article, Foreign Secretary's response indicates that India was not privy to the consultations of PGII, nor was the infrastructure plan part of the documents that were signed by India, Indonesia, South Africa, Senegal and Argentina. Remember, these 5 countries are the special invitees to the summit this year. See, the distinction is interesting because just a month ago at the Quad Summit in Tokyo, Prime Minister of India had attended the launch of US-led Indo-Pacific Economic Initiative, that is IPEF. And note that India joined as an initial or founding partner country. And it is also surprising that India hadn't endorsed the PGII plan, despite US saying that it is a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. We all know that India has actively opposed the BRI because BRI initiative had ignored the issues like sensitivity to sustainable debt burdens, environmental concerns, and India has opposed the BRI for its violation of territorial integrity. So from this, the author says that it is surprising that India didn't endorse PGII. Now leaving that aside, let us see, is there a specific role in PGII for India? See, according to US officials, the PGII will have 4 key priorities on infrastructure. And these priority areas include climate and energy security, digital connectivity, health and health security, gender equality and equity. And know that all of these priority areas are important for New Delhi as well, that is India as well. Now apart from this, the PGII fact sheet released by White House also includes a specific investment plan in an agri-tech and climate sustainability fund. See, it would invest in companies that increase food security and promote both climate resilience and climate adaptation in India. It will also improve the profitability and agricultural productivity of smallholder farms. And apart from this, according to the documents, India Fund aims to raise the $65 million by September 2022 and a target capitalization of $130 million in 2023. And also, the US government's International Development Finance Corporation would mobilize $30 million in private capital for the fund. So these are some of the significances for India. See, despite these significances, India has some possible reasons for hesitation on PGII. And one of the reasons for some skepticism is that the PGII is one of a number of US-led economic initiatives announced globally and also in the Indo-Pacific region. See, there is no clarity on whether all these initiatives would overlap or run concurrently with each other. So there is this confusion and fear that what if US stops funding the project in between? So this is one reason. Another reason for Indian hesitation is that because of consistency. See, when Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative in the year 2013, India's reaction was the same. See, this is because the plan has geopolitical consequences that India had not been consulted with. So, India said that it would have to study before responding to the Belt and Road Initiative. So, it is possible that the Modi's government cautiousness on PGII is about striking a similar balance. So, these two are the reasons for India's hesitation. See, Ministry of External Affairs has not yet expanded on its initial response. And who knows, it is quite possible that once it has studied and verified the strategy of PGII, India will endorse it. So we have to wait and see what India's decision will be. So that's all for this article discussion. In this discussion, we saw a brief about G7 grouping. It is an informal grouping of world's 7 largest advanced economies. They include Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK and US. Germany took over the G7 presidency for the year 2022. We saw that in the 2022 G7 summit, US announced a partnership which is called as the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, shortly referred as PGII. We saw India's response to it, and after that we saw why this response is significant, and we saw the specific role for India in PGII, which includes climate and energy security, digital connectivity, health and health security, gender equality and equity, and investment plan in agri-tech and climate sustainability fund, and India Fund, which aims to raise $65 million by September 2022 and a target capitalization of $130 million in 2023. And we also saw that US government's International Development Finance Corporation, that is the DFC, would mobilize $30 million in private capital for the India Fund. And finally, we ended our discussion by seeing some of the possible reasons for India's hesitation towards PGII. One of the reasons is that there are number of US-led economic initiatives. What if US stops funding the project in between? The another reason is to show consistency. See, the partnership has geopolitical consequences like the Belt and Road Initiative by China. So, India's cautiousness is about striking a similar balance. So, with these points in mind, let us move on to the next article discussion. Look at this news article. It says that the US Commission for International Religious Freedom expressed concerns over the treatment of minorities, human rights advocates, and media in India. It also downgraded India's rating on religious freedom. So the Ministry of External Affairs questioned the credibility and objectivity of the organization, and it termed the organization as a biased one. So this is the crux of the news article given here. In this context, let us understand about USCIRF from prelims point of view. First of all, USCIRF is an independent, bipartisan US federal government commission. It monitors the universal right to freedom of religion or belief abroad. It was established by US government in the year 1998 and it is headquartered in Washington DC. Now what does this USCIRF do? It uses international standards to monitor religious freedom violations globally, and it makes policy recommendations to the President, the Secretary of State and the Congress. See, it is an advisory body to the Congress and its recommendations are not binding. And it is composed of private sector commissioners and the US Ambassador for International Religious Freedom. See, here the US Ambassador acts as a non-voting member. See, the private sector commissioners volunteer their time in support of USCIRF and know that the commissioners are appointed by the President and Democratic and Republican leaders in the House and Senate. See, they are appointed for a term of 2 years. Now, with this information, let us discuss the role of USCIRF. Firstly, it advises US Congress on religious issues. Secondly, it holds regular meeting with the executive branch officials to share information and to discuss the policy recommendations. Thirdly, it monitors religious freedom conditions abroad. It is done through research, travel, meetings with foreign officials and international partners, representatives of independent human rights groups and the other non-governmental organizations, religious leaders, victims of persecution and others. Fourthly, it raises public awareness by holding public events, hosting podcast episodes, releasing public statements and publishing op-eds. Lastly, they publish annual report. See, in this annual report, they assess the foreign countries that violate religious freedom in a systematic, ongoing and intolerable manner. It also highlights the thematic issues affecting religious freedom abroad and it makes policy recommendations to the US government. See, in the last few years, USCIRF has criticized the Indian government's treatment of minority religion groups. It has also criticized the Citizenship Amendment Act and the lynching of Ansari in 2019. Note that in its 2022 annual report, the USCIRF recommended to the Biden administration to designate India, China, Pakistan, Afghanistan and 11 other nations as country of particular concern in the context of status of religious freedom, and that is why India is raising concerns here. And that's all for this discussion. In this discussion, we saw about the US Commission for International Religious Freedom, USCIRF. It is an independent, bipartisan US federal government commission. It monitors the universal right to freedom of religion or belief abroad. It is established in the year 1998 and its headquarters is in Washington, D.C. We saw that it is an advisory body to the US Congress and its recommendations are not binding. It is composed of private sector commissioners and US Ambassador for International Religious Freedom, and the US Ambassador here acts as a non-binding member. And after that we saw private sector commissioners. They are appointed for a term of 2 years by President and Democratic and Republican leaders. And finally, we ended our discussion by seeing the role of USCIRF. It advises the Congress on religious issues. It holds regular meeting with the executive branch officials. It monitors the religious freedom conditions abroad. It raises public awareness by holding public meetings and it publishes annual report. And in the 2022 annual report, it recommended to designate India, China, Pakistan, Afghanistan and 11 other nations as country of particular concern. Now with these points in mind, let us move on to the next article discussion. Now let us take up this news article for our next discussion. See, this news article talks about a new book which explores Gandhi's role in Champaran Satyagraha. So taking this as an opportunity, let us quickly go through contribution of Mahatma Gandhi in early independence movements. See, as you know, Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa to India in the year 1915. And in South Africa, he had led a peaceful agitation against the discrimination of Indians. And because of this, he had emerged as a respected leader in South Africa. And also, it was in South Africa that he developed his brand of Satyagraha. See, in India, he first used this tool against the British government at Champaran in Bihar. See, following that, he also led Keda Satyagraha in the year 1918 and also Ahmedabad mill strike in the year 1918. See, all these three movements are the most important because in all these movements, Gandhi was able to involve the masses, including farmers, artisans, and even the so-called lower castes. See, this was a change from the previous movements when the participation was limited to the upper and middle classes. So, with this brief introduction, now we shall see in detail about Champaran Satyagraha. See, the Champaran Satyagraha was also known as the first civil disobedience movement by Gandhi in the freedom struggle. So, what happened here is, in the Champaran district of Bihar, the cultivators were forced by Europeans to grow indigo. See, it is a plant from which a blue dye is extracted. And the cultivators of this indigo plant were subjected to heavy taxes under an exploitative system. And this exploitative system is called as tin katia system. See, in Indian units of measurement, katas were used as a unit of measurement for land. And the tin katia system forced Indian peasants to grow only indigo plant on 3 out of every 20 katas. So they could not grow food they needed, nor did they receive adequate payment for the indigo. So this is the problem in Champaran district of Bihar. And Gandhi, who just returned from South Africa, was unaware of this until an agriculturist from Bihar, Rajkumar Shukla, met him and told him about the difficulties of people of Champaran. He requested Gandhi to go to the place and see for himself the state of affairs of Champaran district. See, Gandhi arrived in Champaran to investigate the matter, but he was not permitted by the British authorities. He was asked to leave the place, but he refused. He was able to gather support from the farmers and the masses, and when he appeared in the court in response to a summon, almost 2000 locals accompanied him. And the case against him was dropped and he was allowed to conduct the enquiry. After peaceful protest against the planters and the landlords led by Gandhi, the government agreed to abolish the exploitative tin katia system. See, the peasants also received a part of money extracted from the landlords as compensation. So, as a whole, Champaran struggle is called the first experiment on Satyagraha by Gandhi, and later Ahmedabad mill strike and Keda Satyagraha has also happened. See, it was during this time that Gandhi was given the names Bapu and Mahatma by the people. And that's all for this discussion. In this discussion, we saw the three early independent movements led by Gandhi, which includes Champaran Satyagraha, Keda Satyagraha and Ahmedabad mill strike. We saw that Gandhi returned from South Africa in the year 1915. He also led a peaceful agitation in South Africa against the discrimination of Indians. And he first used the tool of Satyagraha at Champaran in Bihar. See, Champaran Satyagraha was known as the first civil disobedience movement by Gandhi. And what was the problem there? The cultivators were forced by Europeans to grow indigo plant under an exploitative system called tin katia system. And according to this system, Indian peasants have to grow only indigo on 3 out of 20 katas. Katas here is the unit of measurement of land. Gandhi was asked to visit Champaran by Rajkumar Shukla. He is an agriculturalist from Bihar, and when he visited Champaran, British authorities did not permit him, but he refused to leave the place. See, he was able to manage the support from the farmers and masses. And the government allowed Gandhi to conduct inquiry, and after peaceful protest against the planters and the landlords, the government agreed to abolish the exploitative tin katia system. The farmers and the peasants, they got money extracted from the landlords as compensation. And this Champaran struggle is the first experiment on Satyagraha by Gandhi. And during this time, Gandhi was given the names Bapu and Mahatma by people. So that's all about this discussion. With these points in mind, now let us move on to the next article discussion. See this article given here. It says that Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan laid the foundation for BVR Mohan Reddy School of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at IIT Hyderabad. He also said that India is going to play a leading role in 4th Industrial Revolution. He emphasized that India have to innovate and establish our own models for achieving self-sufficiency as well as for furthering global welfare. So this is the crux of the news article given here. In this context, let us understand fourth industrial revolution and we'll also see other three revolutions in brief. See, first of all, first industrial revolution began in Britain in the last quarter of 18th century. It incorporated the mechanization of textile industry, harnessing of steam power and birth of modern factory. Now coming to second revolution, it began roughly a century after the first revolution and it peaked at the beginning of 20th century. The second revolution used electric power to create mass production. See, factories could produce countless numbers of identical products quickly and cheaply. This is about the second revolution. Now coming to the third one, see the third industrial revolution which roughly began in 1970 was digital. Here, applied electronics and information technology were used in the production of goods. See, mass customization and additive manufacturing are its key concepts. Now that we have seen a brief about the first three industrial revolutions, let us move on to fourth industrial revolution. See, it was conceptualized as an upgrade to the third revolution. See, it is marked by a fusion of technologies straddling the physical, digital and the biological worlds. See, it includes artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, material science, energy storage and quantum computing. See, already artificial intelligence is all around us. From self-driving cars and drones to virtual assistants and softwares that translate or invest in financial products. See, impressive progress has been made in the AI. It is driven by exponential increase in the computing power and the availability of vast amounts of data. Now, there are softwares to discover new drugs and there are algorithms to predict our cultural interest. See, digital fabrication technologies are interacting with the biological world on a daily basis. How is this possible? See, engineers, designers and architects are combining the computational design, additive manufacturing, materials engineering and synthetic biology. So it creates a symbiosis between microorganisms, our bodies, the products we consume and even the buildings we inhabit. Note that the fourth industrial revolution has the potential to rise global income levels and improve the quality of life for populations around the world. Now that's all about this article given here. In this discussion, we saw about the first three industrial revolutions. The first industrial revolution began in Britain in the last quarter of 18th century. It is about the mechanization of textile industry, harnessing of steam power, birth of modern factory. The second revolution began at the beginning of 20th century and it used the electric power to create mass production. So that is the key concept of second revolution. Now coming to third revolution, we saw it began in 1970 and it was digital. It applied electronics and information technology in the production of goods. Here the key concepts are mass customization and additive manufacturing. And finally we came to fourth industrial revolution. It was considered an upgrade to the third revolution. It is a fusion of technologies including physical, digital and biological worlds. We saw it includes artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, material science, energy storage and quantum computing. And we ended our discussion by seeing some of the characteristics of it. So with these points in mind, let us move on to the next part of our discussion, that is the practice prelims question discussion. Today we have 3 prelims questions. I'll solve 2 of them and one of them is a quiz question for you. Without any delay, let's solve the questions one by one. Now let us take this first question. Consider the following statements regarding US Commission for International Religious Freedom. Statement 1, its recommendations are binding on the government. Statement 2, it is headquartered in Washington, D.C. See, statement 1 here is wrong because in our discussion we saw that the recommendations of USCIRF is not binding, it is only advisory. So, statement 1 is incorrect. Now coming to statement 2, it is correct. This we saw in the discussion. The headquarters is in Washington DC. So the correct option here is option B, 2 only. Now coming to the second question, the term Tinkatia system is related to which one of the following? Indigo plantation, a tax system in medieval India, a type of revenue collection system, and D, none of the above. See, we all know that the correct answer here is option A, indigo plantation. See, as the name suggests, Tinkatia means Teen Katha. See, British introduced indigo plantation in Bengal in the 1820s. Under this system, those farmers who had 1 bigha land, 1 bigha is equal to 20 kathas, had to plant indigo in 3 kathas. This we saw in the discussion itself. If you have 2 bigha land, you must have to plant indigo over 6 katha lands. Or in other words, European planters had involved the cultivators in agreements that forced them to cultivate indigo plant on 3 out of 20 of their land. See, the price of indigo initially was high in the market, but planters who were European usually paid very low price to the farmers. And moreover, the seed and the initial cost used to be provided by the European only. It means farmers had to pay more in return, but they get very less. And they all finally are debt ridden with less fertile land. And this gave birth to several revolts and movement. And apart from this, during World War I, farmers got benefited by indigo cultivation since Germans' artificial indigo wasn't being produced much because of war. As war ended, the demand of Indian indigo drastically reduced and farmers had to bear loss, and still they had to pay huge taxes. So this is about the Tinkatia system, and it is related to indigo plantation. Now coming to the final question, see aspirants, this is the quiz question for you. Consider the following pairs. On the left side, industrial revolution is given. On the right side, its feature is given. Read the question carefully. Try to attempt this question and post your answer in the comment section. Here I have given a mains question for your practice. So interested aspirants, write it and post it in the comment section. If you have any queries related to the articles that we discussed today, post that also in the comment section. And with this, we have come to the end. If you find the video useful, like, share and comment, and do subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy's YouTube channel for further updates. Thank you.